Welcome to Colored Roses and Thorns. I don't really rehearse or anything. I just let the spirit guide me as to what it needs me to say. So, give me a second for a download, a full download. It's a different world. It's a very different world. I um I hope you've enjoyed, I guess, the shorts that I put out for mere entertainment purposes only. Um I want to talk about a subject as referring to, I guess, some women being desperate. Never, I'm going to start off real quick. Never be desperate to have a man, ever. They can smell that desperation. They know when you're being desperate. And I've never been the one to be desperate. I've always been the woman, whereas I'm being chased. I never, ever chase a man. Ever. And if one is to approach me, they have to approach me because I do not approach men. If I've dated one in the past and I know that he's a very good person or something like that, or I know him as a friend, yes, I will talk to him. I will let him know if I should have feelings for him. Yes, I do that. But as far as going out my way to chase anybody, I do not. And I started off this way because I see so many women chasing men. They're like just literally chasing them, trying to bolt them down, chain them down, all for the sake of marriage. And a lot of people don't know the first thing about marriage. They have not studied it. They have not come up in a house with having a strong male figure around them. And a lot of these men have not grown up in a house with a strong male figure, no stepfather, no father, and sometimes a man might come later in a male's life, so he doesn't really get that foundation that he needs in order to know what to do to be a man. Fortunately, my boys have always been surrounded with strong male figures. Their fathers involved. They've had grandfathers involved. When they say it takes a village to raise a man, honey, it really does. Whether it's a grandfather, whether it's a good stepdad. Now, all stepdads are good, but some of them are extremely good in stepping in when the biological father does not step in. And I'm trying around, just let it come out as it come out. It might seem erratic, but these are subjects that the spirit are going to lead me to talking about. It's a new world. It's a very different world than the one that some of us grew up in. And what I mean about it's a new world is that things are more in the open. People are experimenting with new ways, new sexual acts, new some of everything. And some of us may have been sheltered and do not yet know that these type of things exist. And a lot of our men expect us, well, they kind of are savvy to what's going on in the world, and they expect for some women to be a bit ignorant about what's going on in the world, especially if you are a mature woman who's on her grind and not really out there with all the extra. You may be ignorant of a few things that might be going on in the world. And a lot of these men that really are aggressive, aggressive, coming at you. And a lot of them don't have money. They'll fool you and make you think they have money and this, that, and the other, but you never see it. A lot of those men are gay or bisexual. And unfortunately, many of them will take advantage of the ignorance of some of these women who do not realize that, hey, this world is not the way, well, it may be the way it used to be, but now it's more out in the open. And a lot of these gay or bisexual men will use women to buy their clothing, cologne, just to look good for another man. So you have to be wary. Now, I've never been the one to buy a man clothing, ever. I'm like, if a man can't buy his own clothing, honey, I don't need to be with him anyway. If a man cannot at least buy some of his own meals, or have a job where he can afford to at least get a scooter. And there are some exceptions for some that do not have cars. But if you've been with them for a whole year and they talking about they have a car and they go get them a car and they go do this and that, but you never see these type things coming to fruition, you might want to start checking this person out. In most cases, not most cases, but a lot of cases, you start watching and start picking up on certain things that this person only shows up when you have certain things, or if they need certain things or want certain things. I'll run a game on them. And I'm not saying that is right, but sometimes, yes, if they can do things for you that you cannot do for yourself, like not monetarily wise, but actually assist you in something, go ahead, keep them around. Keep them around if you know how to control your environment. You can let them in, let them cook for you, let them massage your shoulders if you need a massage. Play along with the game. But when the game comes to the point where they just expect you to do things, you need to start questioning. Like with disappearing eggs. Not having an explanation as to where they're disappearing to. Men that have a score of women that they play, and because I have a sixth sense, so I pretty much know what's up all the time. And like I said in a previous video, I can choose to either play along with it or just cut it off right then. But the first thing, women, stop buying these men wardrobes and clothing. They should be able to afford their own clothes. If you're in a relationship, though, and you both are given equally, that's fine. Buy each other gifts, that's fine. But if you just meet a man and he's expecting you to buy all of his clothing, everything that he should be providing for himself, that should be a red flag. And then Another thing, he never wears those clothes around you, but wearing them for other people, either to get his next opportunity to use a female, or wearing those clothes for a man. And you have to be realistic that these type things do occur in this day and time. It's just like that. And yes, there are still some great heterosexual men out there who have grown up with father figures in their lives, like great stepdads, grandfathers, and things like that. It doesn't have to be their biological father, but a strong male figure. And some of the men are, I mean, really upfront men who know how to be a man. And when a man is being a man, it's so much easier for a woman to just be who she is and be a woman. Now, I also want to talk about black men, and it's going to be quite a touchy subject for some of you, but black men, sadly, the ones that I have run into, some of them, a lot of them that you don't know might be on the down low. And I may have a little bias when it comes to speaking about all except for my sons, of course. Speaking of black men, because from the time I was little all the way up through my adulthood, it has always been a black man that's been violent. I mean, violent, abusive. I mean, all except for my granddad. That's the only one I can remember going all the way back that never laid his hands on me, never raised his voice on me, at me. No, two men actually that I've known over the years. But most violence has always come from a black man. I mean, physical, emotional. It's always been a black man for me that's been violent. So after I was kind of like in an arranged marriage after I had my son, because it was a thing where as I was not supposed to have a child out of wedlock, though I was 21 years old and pregnant. But a marriage was arranged for me. And I did not want to marry that man. The father of my child had gone into military school. But my father, being the person that he was, and the way he was in the community and the government and all that type thing, felt that I needed to be married. So there was a guy, I barely knew him at all. And I remember before the wedding telling my mama I did not want to marry him. I said, I don't want to marry him. Well, your daddy spent all this money on you going through with it. So sadly, I went up the aisle. I was crying the whole time. Behind my veil, tears were streaming down. And when he lifted my veil, I was crying. I did not want to marry this person, this man, and he happened to have been a black man. And after the ceremony, my parents, so-called parents, had gotten like a honeymoon suite on the beach. because we lived near the beach. And I remember I didn't want to have sex with this man. I didn't know him thoroughly. I didn't want him touching me. Well, he hit me on honeymoon night, and it was like a rape. It was actually a rape because I didn't want him touching me. I didn't want to consummate the marriage. So I went on and I moved into a townhouse, went up to Tallahassee from South Florida, back to Tallahassee because I had been in school up there. And I was living with him, and I had my little baby. And this man, he was very controlling. I didn't want him touching me because I was still in love with my son's father, married to a man that I didn't want to be married to. And he wanted to have sex. I didn't want him touching me. And one day, he came in, and actually I had gotten on the phone to call my father's son and say, hey, please come get me. This is with somebody I don't want to be with. And I don't know if I wrote a number. It was something I threw in the garbage. But this man used to go through the garbage to see if I don't know what he was looking for, but he found the little note. And the next thing I know, he had pushed me down on a couch and wrapped a telephone cord around my neck and started pulling. And I could see in his eyes that he was going to kill me. The only thing that saved me was my baby and the angels, because my baby son came crawling behind him and made a noise. And it was like he just snapped out of whatever it was. And I had lines around my neck and everything from the telephone cord. And I looked at him. I said, guess what? You will never put your hands on another woman again. And I wasn't scared, but then my son got sick like the next. This tell you just how evil this man was. My son got sick the next day. He was diarrhea, and he was dehydrated, a little bitty thing. And I said, well, can you take us to the hospital? My son, there's something, my son is dying. I felt my son about to leave me. He wouldn't take us to the hospital. So I grabbed my son, wrapped him up, grabbed his bag, and I started to walk. And the hospital was maybe about 8 miles away. And I started walking towards the hospital. And thank goodness it was dark, and I saw lights coming around a curve. And it happened to have been a friend of mine, a female friend that lived there in Tallahassee. She said, girl, what are you doing on the road? I said, my baby's sick and he won't take me to the hospital. And she got me in the car and rushed us. And they told me if I had not gotten my son there, if I had gotten him there 5 minutes later, that he would have been dead. They snatched him out of my arms and started working on him. I told my friend, the female friend, I said, I got to get away from this man. I said, he gonna kill us. And fortunately, she was able to take her boyfriend over there and say, hey, man, you need to just, whatever paper she got to sign, you need to sign them. You need to let her go. I had talked to a judge that I knew there. He actually annulled the marriage. And actually my son's biological father sent his sister from Texas because they were all in the military. And his sister was coming through, and she stopped through to pick me up. Lo and behold, 2 weeks after I had left Tallahassee, my mom calls me on the phone. You know, such and such is dead. I say, who? And the guy was dead. And she went on. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't care. And she said, well, he had gone to the house to see some other another female. He must have been seeing her while I was married to him. That short period of time. And the father would not let him in the house because evidently they had had an altercation before and didn't want the guy near his daughter. He said, no, you're not coming in my house and you're not coming near my daughter. And his daughter wouldn't come out of the house because she was afraid of him. Well, this guy walks back to his car, grabs a gun, point blank shoots the father in his forehead, and then turns the gun on himself and kills himself. He killed himself. I say, and I didn't feel any kind of way about it when my mother told me. I said, well, he got what he deserved. Anybody to mistreat a child and will stand there and allow them to die and then try to take my life, I have no sympathy for them. That was a black man. I have had black men break my shoulder bones when you're doing the best you can and working long hours and they just want more and more and more. These are men with low self-esteem. And even when it seems as though they have good self-esteem or good jobs, there's still something missing because some of them were not raised with fathers. And it's like they become your competition in their eyes. And if you're not doing what they want you to do, some of them can become violent. You can't speak your mind. You can't speak intelligently like a sane person. Like you would sit down and have a sane conversation with a person who's probably on your same frequency. These have been damaged men. So I've had my collarbone broken, concussions, bruising, and then there are the ones that have drug addictions that hide their drug addictions from you, and you don't find out about their drug addictions until they need a high. And when they need a high, they become violent. They want your money. They want to take your money, and if you don't give them your money, well, you end up black and blue. And then I say, you know what? I have been through so much with black men. And I wasn't even looking for a man. But the man who's treated me the best was actually my husband I was married to for 20 some years. And he was not black. He was Asian. An Asian man. And he treated me better than anybody. We got divorced because he had gotten addicted to pain meds. He used to have terrible back issues, and he got addicted to prescription drugs. And actually, I married him twice because the first time I wanted to help him, I wanted to because he had done so much for me and the kids at the time. He was really good starting out. And then when he got addicted to painkillers, he became a different person. He would he had a job with this Bibb County, I forgot what part of Bibb County, but he was a good worker, and he started hanging with the guys after work. They say, well, man, won't you try this for your back and try this and that? And he was hooked on oxycodone. And then he started selling them instead of taking them. So one day after work, there was this little, I don't know what she was, but she was not a good person. Say, well, I got something that can heal your pain. And since he was from another country, I don't know if he was aware of what it was that this female was going to have him try. But it turned out to be methamphetamine. I don't know what they do with meth. I don't know if they smoke it, shoot it, snort it. I don't know. But all I know is that eventually he had gotten addicted to meth, and I couldn't figure out. He used to like put holes in his skin, pick holes in his skin, had sores start to develop on his face and stuff. And it wasn't until a neighbor, this lady that lived next door, she said, honey, I said, yes, ma'am. I said, your husband is on meth. I said, how you know he on meth? She said, because it's a man that comes through here in a red truck. And I watch everybody, and my son was addicted to it. That man comes through here and he sells meth. And I saw your husband at the truck. And I didn't ask him right then. He kept saying he had worms coming out of his skin and kept picking sores. So one day, he was anxious for us to leave the house. He had plotted this, honey. And then while we were out of the house, he had one of his friends to break into one of our side doors. And the only thing he took was like this really huge TV. It was like almost like 100. I mean, it was huge television. And that's the only thing that was taken out of the house. I said, now this was planned. And so I divorced him. I've always divorced the men. I've never had men divorce me or a man to divorce me. I always divorced the man because it was getting to the point where he was stealing out of the house. It was affecting the children. So I divorced him the first time. He went away. He seemed to have been doing fine. He came back. We started talking again. Everything seemed fine. And we got married again. And he was doing and he was working. They had given him his job back. And, but that addiction was just too strong, you know. And he was a good person because he taught my boys and my girls great work ethics. He had a cleaning company too, just like the one my father had contracting with the government and with HUD. So he did that, and he also worked for Bibb County. So he would work, but the addiction just took over to the point where I just could not deal with it anymore, whereas I would work all day. I said, well, I don't have time. I would give him the mortgage money, and he was supposed to be paying. We had a beautiful house and cars, trucks. And one day the lady called me. She said, Miss Chan, she said, your mortgage is behind 3 months. I say, no, I've been giving the money to my husband and bring it up. She said, no, ma'am. Boy, I had been spending it up on meth. So I had to get rid of that situation. And actually, my children and I stayed in a motel until I found another house because my father came up and he paid off the bills that had accumulated because he wasn't paying our bills when I give him money. And he was smoking or doing whatever his money up when he would get paid. And so I sold that house, and then we went to a motel until I found another house. But we did fairly well. But then I messed around, maybe a couple of years later, maybe 3 years after my divorce, and he had moved, I think, to North Carolina. I actually thought he had been deported because we saw where he had gotten into some trouble. But 3 years later, I got involved with this black man. And Lord, the things I didn't know about him. But he ended up breaking my ribs. Actually, I had married him. It was like 2 or 3 weeks. I said, hell no, I ain't staying in this. So I worked to get that annulled. And it did because I suffered broken ribs. Found out some other things about him that was hidden, that was revealed to me through the district attorney. And happened to be a black man. But no, as sadly as it may be, it's pretty hard to even want to date a black man, because I came, even with the recent one, it's like they want to be a kid and want the women to take care of them, instead of stepping into the role and having that, how can you say, the position of being leader in the household. I was brought up in a household whereas my father was in charge of the household. He kept control of the finances. My mother was his helpmate. They would discuss everything. They ran and still run their marriage like a business. I could never find that in a black man, unfortunately. And the ones I've recently dated, all except for one. There is one that I dated for a brief period. This man was on it. He grew up in a 2-parent home. He had been in the military too. Seemed like all the men that gravitate towards me have been in military. I had some kind of military background. But this guy I dated briefly, and oh, he was everything. He really was. He would take the menu. He would take charge. Okay, I would suggest this. Show me. He would make plans and everything for our date. He was always the gentleman. He would pay for the meals. He would, if he said he was going to be somewhere or at my house at a certain time, he was there. It was no, if he couldn't make it, which he never didn't make it, he would always show up on time. He was always very conversational. Oh gosh, the conversation. He was a great communicator, and I love to conversate. So that was real for me. He was able to have a conversation and communicate. And he took me, I met his mother, I met his sister. He would take me on trips with him in his truck, and I loved them. I really fell in love with him from like within the very first 2 weeks, but I didn't let him know that. I guess we both got busy or something, because in our jobs or whatever was going on, I can't even remember what happened, but we kind of gravitated apart. I think there was a misunderstanding when I was trying to do something to, I thought I was helping, but it turned out to, I guess, to be something that eventually it was helping, a help for his mother. But at the time, I thought I was just helping. But at first, they didn't see it that he didn't see it that way. But I still speak to him occasionally. He's a sweetheart. He really is. But then you get involved with some people who approach you, I mean, aggressively, and they will tell you lies, telling you they have houses and cars, and then you find out they don't have, and it didn't matter whether they did or not, because I'm not that type of person. I don't judge people on superficial things. All you got to do is be yourself and then let me decide. But if you come with a lie, you're not giving me the fair opportunity to decide off of truth, you know. And as time panned out, I realized this person was focusing in on women that were stable, or women who had a certain financial foundation, and that were mature women, some of them older than he. And he would zoom in, but it was a lot of them. And I guess I'm kind of like a hard cookie to crack, because I can see through everything. I can sense things. And like I said, sometimes I just play along with it just to see how far it goes. And that gut feeling told me, hey, don't buy this person like fabulous clothing when you have money. Don't, he put out fish money, whereas he'll present money where you think he has money, but sometimes these men will store their money up from the different women. And he will put out like a dangling money, say, okay, he's fine, he got his money. He might even pay for the first meal. But then they'll start saying, well, my card doesn't work, or I lost my card, or something like that. And then the women realize that now they're paying for all the meals. And that's the con. And sometimes you'll find out that, hey, they're getting all these clothing, all these perks from like these different women. And a lot of them will lead women, some of these women, to think that it's going to lead to a marriage. But that's why I tell women, don't go about what they say, go about what they do. If you start, if you just pay attention, you will notice their inconsistencies. But I was at a point where, as I just had back surgeries, I say, okay, if he do for me, I'll do for him. But there's a limit. I even will be friendly and become a friend, because I'm not vindictive. There's a point now, whereas when a person goes overboard, they'll try me a little too much, I will come back. He will not be violent, such as a physical violence, but my mouth, honey, it will go off. I will tell you about your grandma curled toenail in her grave. And that's just the way I am. But when I speak, I'm going to speak the truth. And I'm going to shoot it at you straight. And it might seem harsh. It might seem nasty. But it going to be the truth. And I will come out and say, hey, this is what's going on. Because believe you, I've ran a background check. I've had people all over town to watch these people, to see what they're up to, what kind of game they running. I mean, I can be right here, never move outside the walls of my home, and know everything that's going on about a person I want to know about. Because, as I said, I've helped a lot of people out over the years, and some of them are out and about, so they know what's going on. May it be right here in the city of Macon, or on the outskirts of Macon, or all the way to Warner Robins, Atlanta, all the way to Chicago. I got people who can find things out for me. And, well, I start getting my little notes together. Person denied seeing certain people, though I knew for a fact that he was sneaking around and using these women, because that was his game, to get clothes, get food, get money, whatever he was doing, stack money, take their money, whatever they do. But whatever it was, he wasn't doing it to me, because I was up on his game. And a lot of these women, they're so desperate for marriage, because some of them have never been married. Some of them are approaching their 50s or mid 40s and never been married, so now they're desperate. And this particular person will take advantage of that for them. I don't know what he thought. He must have thought I was desperate. But I was not, because I just got out of a marriage, and then that one with domestic. So I was not in any rush. I was minding my own business, in my own little world, when this person pursued me. But I knew it was a reason, because my gut told me. But I played along with it, and I said, well, since he's here, I might as well have him around to do some things for me. So it turned into kind of like not a partnership, but like a business situation, whereas I couldn't walk, so he went to the store for me. Or I can't cook today, so he'll cook for me today. It became kind of like, I scratch your back, you scratch my back. And all along, I know certain things were going on, but that would defeat my purpose if I would just let it all out. But eventually, I had to let him know I knew everything that was going on, and that in fact, everyone that told me everything about him was telling the truth. But I say there is a use and a reason for everybody. So my thing like this, they say keep your enemy close to your pocket, so you'll know what they're doing. And believe me, I know what my friends and foes are doing all of the time. That's my business, to know who's my foe and who's my enemy. And no, I don't have to leave out the outskirts of my home to know that. You got good people that you've done favors for, that are willing to do favors for you. But what I'm also saying is that never allow an earthly experience to ever fuck with you spiritually. You don't do that. Yeah, I get to the point where I will cuss you out. I will cuss your mama, your grandma, your dead grandma. But after a while, it subsides. I might be angry on a verbal rant for a week or so, and then after a while, it's like I forget it. I'm just like that. I just move on because I believe in staying in the present. I believe in never letting an earthly experience knock me off balance, because I have things to do other than focus on some crazy junk somebody else doing. I have to go through dealing with physical issues. I have to deal with where my income or money is going to come from. I have family members that I need to focus in on. I cannot let this earthly person whose mind and spirit is not in a good place to knock my spiritual existence out of whack. I can't afford to do that. Too many people depends on me. Even with my back surgeries, I still have to step up for my family. And women, just be aware that there are snakes out there. There are men that use you and abuse you. Don't be out there spending money on clothes for some man that should be buying his own clothes. I mean, okay, if you're in a date or buying a gift or something, but those men that only show up around Christmas, those men that only show up around certain holidays looking for gifts or money or for you to take care of them, question that. Question it. What are you really looking for? Are you so desperate that you're blind about what's going on with these men? Honey, keep your eyes and your third eye open. If you haven't developed your third eye, honey, you got intuition. Don't be blinded by desperation. Don't be blinded by and let me tell you, dick is not that important, honey. Make a spiritual connection first. Because, like my grandma used to tell me, you can get dick a dime a dozen. You can get pussy a dime a dozen. I mean, never get blinded by the physical. Don't, because some of it's not even, I promise you, it's not even that good. And when you make a spiritual connection with somebody who's on your frequency, honey, you go forget all about the last toe that took something from you or swindled you out of something. And like I said, there are a lot of these men, and I can only speak about some of the black men that I've dealt with. I'm sure they exist in other races, but I have not met them, that will use heterosexual women to get them plenty of stuff. And honey, they be wearing their colognes and their clothes just to go out with a man. So you have to be awakened to this world, because some people choose that lifestyle, some choose to keep it hidden, some are still in the closet and use it to their advantage. So you have to be careful. And there's a lot of signs, tales, and you have to just be aware. And if you become desperate, you're going to miss a lot of this. He could be telling you straight up. I mean, just telling you, and you're not listening, because now the woman is in a state of desperation where I want to have a husband. I want to have a husband. When we go get married? And then they preaching, trying to capture them. You know how Christianity is. It was a mechanism for brainwashing people. They start pouring that on them. And I mean, honey, you can't have one foot in spiritual sense and then one foot with the devil. You can't sleep with this man. You can't be up there drinking, allowing all these demons into your porthole, but trying to be a holy roller. You can't do both. You just cannot do both. And or your vision will become clouded. But anyway, good people, be aware that it is a this world. This is a different world. It's a different world we're in. First, don't go out buying a man a clothes. He should be able to have clothes of his own. It's okay for a gift every now and then, but if you buying all his clothes, paying all his meals, doing everything he should be doing for himself, if you're doing it for yourself, you need to expect the man that you're with to be able to do those things that you're doing. You are not a mother to them. They got a mother or had a mother. You can't raise a grown man. First of all, you cannot raise a good man. And another thing that's very sad is that some black women have the tendency to mother black men. They don't need another mother. They need to be men. They need to stand up and be men. Like I said, some of them don't know how to be men. They got mentoring places. They got all sorts of places that they could attend to ask questions. They have some men. You have to be careful with people in a church too, because they have a lot of demons in the church. I call it a hospital for sinners. So even in there, you have to be selective. But they have counselors. I'm an ordained minister and high priestess, and I'm not your traditional one at all, not by a long shot. I respect other people's right to their religions and their beliefs, even though sometimes they attack mine, but I'm purely spiritual. I'm not confined by religion. But I will speak to you. I've counseled plenty of young men and connected them with people that they have needed to be connected with if they grew up in a household that did not have a strong male figure, because you're going to act and be like the people that you're around. And if you're raised in a house full of women and you see women in a dump, that's why a lot of black men, I believe, end up, those in single households end up actually having a subconscious hate for black women being in control, because their whole lives they've had to be in a household where the woman has had to step into a manly role and play all the roles in the house. And that leaves an effect on a child when they grow up. So it's very important for mothers to get strong male figures into those sons' lives. Not just anybody. They have to be community figures, men with good work ethics, men that exemplify what a man should be. So these boys don't grow up violent or hating themselves. Violence comes from self-hate sometimes, or with this thing where they feel as though they have to compete with women or steal from women, or that a woman has to take care of them. Yeah, we got to get them early, because they're not only being damaged in their households, they're also being damaged in the school systems, because there are some women and men in the school system that are teachers that happen to be another color, that will start to demise or to break down these little boys even farther. Now, you do have some good educators that are in there that will step up and help these young boys with their self-esteem and make connections for them, get them involved in sports or team efforts. But then a lot of them just fall along the way, and we're losing a lot of our men to different things in the world. Now, I'm just telling you, what's that song? Be woke. I do not own the rights to that song. Stay woke. Y'all have a good day, and I'll talk to you guys later. Be blessed. Positive vibes.